So you would like to know why the Roman rules matter when you're making mosaics? Well, you're in the right place. I'm Helen Miles, and I'm here to teach you all the tips and tricks you need to make mosaics. This is a video about the Roman rules and why they matter. First of all, we're going to look at this very classical mosaic fish, which is based on an ancient Roman design. And it is a fish which applies those ancient rules, the Roman rules of mosaic making. So that means the spacing is quite regular. The size of the pieces is fairly consistent. There are discrepancies, for example, around the eye here. There is line splitting. You can see it, I hope, up there. And if I move along, can you see some more examples? Well, you can see them very easily down here. There are also a limited number of triangles. So there are triangles kind of ending the points of the fins. And in theory, there are no straight lines. There are no crosses, and there are no straight lines either running horizontally or vertically. I personally, this is just the way I make, I tend to have quite clear lines running horizontally. This is something I just like to do to emphasize the kind of flow and the movement, so it's not technically Roman. But that's something that we're going to be talking about. But by and large, this fish applies the Roman rules. By contrast, this is a mosaic which does not apply the Roman rules. I made this mosaic years and years ago at the beginning of my mosaic career, and I was super enthusiastic, and all I wanted to do was make mosaics, but I didn't know anything about the rules, so I just created them how I felt like making them. And you can see that all of those rules are broken. So there's lots of little triangles all over the place. There's a huge inconsistency of size. There are crosses aplenty. The more you look, the more you see. That's a very clear one. Well, I just had my finger on it. Anyway, it's vanished, so it can't be that clear. There's another one up here. Yeah, I'm using rectangles, I'm using squares, I'm using these kind of weirdy shapes. There's no keystones, and they're just, as I said, there are just so many triangles. I've lost count. The reason why the Roman rules are so useful is it helps you create a sense of visual harmony. So mosaics, by their very nature, of course, are super bitty. There's lots going on. There are lots of pieces, and they're all put on one surface. And somehow or other, the eye needs to calm down and focus on whatever you, the mosaic artist, want the eye to fall on. So when the rules are applied, you don't kind of notice what's going on in the background here. You really just notice the fish and the flow of the fish. And if you look at the background, you notice the flow of the background rather than any kind of visual distraction. And that is the advantage of the Roman rules. Going back to this mosaic, which has not got any rules applied, you can see that it's very busy. The busyness, the essential busyness of mosaics is still very apparent. Okay, there's an extremely strong design, so that, and we've got plenty of contrast, so that the eye does fall on the antelope's head. But once your eye has kind of finished looking at that head, you can't help but notice this sort of fizziness, this distraction. For example, very, very clearly around the ears here. And also in places where I've got runs, I've got repeats of the same shape, and there's the same going on down here underneath the mouth. You see all these little bits which I don't need. They're not, we don't want to be looking at the background in this particular design. So therefore, having things like teeny tiny bits and triangles and not choosing keystones means that the whole thing, it's not a mess, but it's much less harmonious to look at. I don't want you to go away and think, oh my God, I've got to learn the Roman rules, I've got to apply them to all my mosaics. I just want you to think about how they will help you in your practice. And they don't have to be classically inspired mosaics to be helpful. So here's a little sample. It's just something I was illustrating. And of course, it's got many examples of the line split here. And you'll see that throughout contemporary mosaics. It's just a very useful way of filling a space when the space goes from narrow to wide or from wide to narrow. The line split is a very simple technique which really creates a visual flow so that your eye doesn't kind of stop where the split happens, but it just moves seamlessly through. Here's another example which doesn't apply the Roman rules, but it's an example of where the Roman rules are applied where I want them, where I need them, but where they're abandoned where I don't. And that's the point of all rules, that to know them is to exploit them, to use them where you need them and to abandon them where you don't. So of course this is a representational mosaic again, and it's kind of classical in the sense that it's based on well, Byzantine, I mean, that's ancient, so in that sense it's classical, but you know what I mean. So, I mean, there are big pieces and there are small pieces. There are triangles and there are nipped off triangles. There is offsetting very clearly here. So there's a kind of combination of using the rules and not using the rules. So that's what I really wanted to say in this video. I think it's really important to know them and then you can break free of them. But they're there, they're in your toolbox. You can use them when you want them. So here we have another example of a mosaic which applies the rules quite consistently. So it's a bird, obviously on a branch. Sorry, I can't get the whole thing underneath, just about. So I have made a online video course about making this bird, which explains the Roman rules very, very clearly, I hope. Anyway, so here we have the rules applied. So again, there's offsetting, there are line splits, triangles are used minimally and when they're wanted and needed. There's a clear outline around the bird, but not an outline around the fiddly parts of the bird, like the feet and the beak. So I hope this shows you how smooth the overall result is when the rules are applied. So there you have it. Reasons to use the Roman rules, or rather reasons to know the Roman rules and use them or not as you find applicable. As I said, I've done a course about this very subject, which is available through my website, but I've also made a couple of YouTube videos already about the Roman rules, and I'll be building up that library. So I hope you find that useful. And if you like this video and you'd like to see more, then please subscribe below.